Hey, Josh.
Uh-huh.
Hey, you're getting ready to get married.
I didn't know that.
I thought it'd be time to have a man-to-man talk with you
Ah.
about the birds and the bees. There's a lot of things that young couples don't. It's hard to learn on their own. So I've got a little present I'm gonna give you.
Before the wedding night.
It was quite defining.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. All right, it's Friday, April 15th. Yesterday we talked about Jeremiah Duggar and this video that they put up on their Instagram. Your comments were very awesome. A lot of you thought it was just like him being silly. Some of you were just like, ew. And others of you were just like, whatever. And that's kind of sums up my comments. And others of you just literally leave comments to not be nice to me. And I still love you and appreciate you watching. But I was thinking about something as I did that video, because some of you in the comments were like, there's just something about the Duggar men that makes you feel kind of like weirded out, right? And I was like, yeah, there's this thing about Jim Bob that has always given me the heebie-jeebies, like the way that he would always kiss Michelle. And then there was that one time he was playing golf with her. Oh my gosh, don't even get me started. And yeah, but I was thinking about how, the way that women are treated, it's like they are owned by the man.
Let me show y'all the best way to kiss here. If you kiss straight on, your noses hit together, see? And so you have to turn, she turns one way, I turn the other.
Well, I started going into the archives from 19 Kids and Counting, 17 Kids and Counting, blah, blah, blah. And I found their wedding, Josh and Anna's wedding. Recalled that in the wedding episode that Jim Bob handed him a book, which was a book called Intended for Pleasure by Dr. Ed Wheat. Now, this is the doctor that Jim Bob actually credits as being his doctor, which I'm not sure if that's true or not. I don't know the logistics here. But he was a doctor who was a Christian writer as well.
I think it's so important for the man to learn to cherish his wife, and for him to realize that it takes a lot longer for her to kind of get in the mood and stuff after they're married versus a man is instant on, instant off.
I realized that at the very end of the episode of their wedding, as they're driving to the hotel, mind you, they're listening to the book on audio, and it's the Intended to Pleasure book, and you can see it on the dashboard, and they're listening to it as they drive to the hotel to, ultimately.
This is a book that Dr. Ed Wheat, who was my doctor growing up, wrote, and he counseled Michelle and I before we got married.
I think I kind of understand how it works.
Yeah.
I think I learned that
It's kind of like Legos.
Yeah.
Do what they've been trying to wait to do for a very long time, and the only reason they get married in this world. So I was listening to that and I was like, okay, like, so weird. You're driving, your dad gave you this book, now you're driving to the hotel and you're listening to Dr. Ed Wheat talk about how the intimacy is like the most important aspect of a marriage. And I was looking through the book, because by the way, you can actually download this on Kindle for free. Who knew? And I saw this part in the book and I was like, okay, Jim Bob hasn't even taken his own advice, because there's actually a chapter in the book that says that you should be independent of your in-laws. It says the man, by the way, is told to leave his father and his mother to cleave and to be united totally and inseparably to his wife, a welding together so that there can be no taking apart. He is commanded to cleave to his wife even before he is told to love her. The Bible does not specify the best age for marriage, but it does establish the principle that the man must be able to be totally independent of his parents and to establish his own home. He says separating from your parents physically, emotionally, and financially is the best possible way to begin a new social unit. Jim Bob doesn't even let his kids do this. And this is in the book that Jim Bob credits as being a game changer to his life. He also credits this book to telling him to get rid of the TV. In the book, he says, declare a moratorium on media for at least 1 year. I used to say simply, do not get a TV set for at least 1 year. This was one of the most surprising things that young people heard from me. It may sound absurd, but did you know that television can be the greatest, most subtle thief of our time? It will steal away those moments that you should be devoting to your mate and later to your family. It will take away the most wonderful hours of your day, hours that can be spent in personal communication, sharing, and moments when you can best learn to relate to each other. There's no giving, no receiving when you spend your time watching television. Television doesn't produce prime time, it steals your prime time as a couple. Ed Wheat's the one that came up with the no TV rule, and the book overall is super weird and kind of creepy. And I think if you were just an average person getting this book, it would be like, you'd probably throw it away and be like, is this 1836? Like, am I really supposed to be a submissive wife that just does whatever I want? I mean, he even kind of talks about being joyfully available in this book. Not to say that Ed Wheat is the one that came up with this idea. That whole biblical submission is not unique to just this branch of Christianity. This group seems to take it to a very vast extreme that gives the man the full rights to the female's body regardless of whether or not she wants it, and makes the woman feel like she can't say no because otherwise she's not submitting to her husband, and you have to submit because you must respect his authority, you know, all of that. But you're doing so because you love him. It's such a twisted logic, and I don't want to get into theology because some of you will believe that submission is fine, and I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong for doing that. I just think it's, this is, you've never known anything, you've never had any education, and this is the book you're going to read. So they're driving in and they're listening to this, a book that they got from their dad. And I'm like, if this is how they learned about what was going to happen that night, can you imagine how much they still to this day don't know? Or if they do know, how warped what they know is? When you start to think about the way that Josh and Anna grew up and how left out of actual education they were. And I'm not coming for homeschoolers. Some people think that when I speak about homeschooling on this channel, I'm talking about regular homeschooling. I'm talking about the ATI, the Advanced Training Institute, the curriculum written by Bill Gothard. That's what I'm talking about. That curriculum is so bad. If you look at the wisdom books and you learn how they're taught, it leaves out huge parts of the world. It tells you things that are simply not true, that not loving God can cause renal disease and how bitterness causes cancer. I mean, it's just not factually true. They have revisionist history. They're very racist about the Civil War. There's a lot of things in these wisdom books that are just inaccurate. And then they have very inaccurate education around marital relationships and the evolving body and sexuality and all of that. So you go from the ATI education that's severely lacking in both accuracy, factual basis, and reality, and then you go to Dr. Ed Wheat telling you then on your wedding night what to do. It's no wonder there's such problems with this group, right? It's no wonder that Josh ends up in the world in which he does, in behind bars, because he's learning horrible stuff through the ATI. The book he's given by his dad is horribly misogynistic, horribly outdated, not accurate, and written by a doctor, which is super weird. And then telling Josh on his wedding day that Anna belongs to him. When you enter into a marriage and there was never equality to begin with, and then you enter into a place where Anna from day one of their marriage is told that you need to be submissive to your husband, the wife sees the reverence of her husband. If the wife does not trust and respect her husband, it is devastating to him and finally to the marriage. The greatest desire of love is to find an answering love. The greatest grief of love is to not be believed. But if a wife is able to look at her husband with eyes of reverence, he becomes a king among men. In turn, he should give his wife the place of honor and a place of special privilege and preciousness. Many men have second-rate wives because they treat them in second-rate manner. They never gain the real queen they would like to be married to. They just do not realize that the wife, in many ways, is a reflection of her husband. The wife is elevated to a queenly position by the wise and loving husband who puts into operation the great principles of the God-planned marriage. It is much easier to respect a man who makes you the highest priority in his life and does everything to enhance your life and activities. When it comes to children, it says the most important thing a father can do for his children is to love their mother. The home should be the most attractive place in the world to the children, and the mother should be the greatest attraction. Without a warm atmosphere in your home and marriage, an atmosphere of love, generosity, and forgiveness, your children will not know how to love. The only person who knows how to love is the person who has been loved and who has seen loved and has experienced loved. The Christian home is a laboratory for which the God is demonstrated. If you do not have that kind of love in your home, your children will likely grow up with a feeling of inferiority, emptiness, and lack of self-worth. The only course on marriage most children will ever take is the one in their home. It also says the husband is to be the head of the wife. So if you understood that, she is supposed to be so devoted to him because it's respectful to him. It is impossible for a woman to revere her husband if he is not worthy of reverence. If she does not trust and respect her husband, it's devastating for him. So if she doesn't trust him and respect him, it devastates him. So she probably feels like she has to trust Josh and respect him and believe him when he says that he didn't do these things. But then it also, in the same book, says that the husband is supposed to be the head of the household. The husband's authority over the wife is rooted in Christ's authority over the church. In fact, all authority we have is delegated in authority. And the husband who keeps this in mind will never abuse that authority. On the other hand, the man who relinquishes his leadership position in sowing seeds that will yield trouble in due season. So you're never supposed to give up power to your wife. The husband is the spiritual leader of the home and the head of his wife, whether he functions in this capacity or not. Any break in the marriage relationship is the man's responsibility. Now, I did not say it was his fault. I said that God holds the man accountable for any break in the marriage because he is the one commanded to cleave inseparably to his wife. This principle of responsibility applies in every area of the relationship, whether spiritual, emotional, and physical. The bride-to-be should realize before the wedding how important it is to marry a man she can gladly respond to and submit to as her spiritual leader and protective head. If you cannot look up to a man, you do not look at him. That's his quote. So it's his fault if anything goes wrong, but it's not his fault. It's just he has to be the one that's accountable to God. She's commanded to respect him, to look up to him. He is commanded to be her authority. She's also supposed to respect him because if she doesn't respect him, it's disrespectful and he will feel like less than a human. At no point in this book does it say that you should respect your wife because it'll make her feel like less than a human. So you have to think of it this way. They walk into a marriage in the book that they're given is so messed up that they probably believe that this is true. And that to this day, Anna still probably thinks that if she just respects him more, believes him more, everything will be fixed. And then you go back to this wedding and you realize they were virtual strangers who rarely spent any time together, and then they got a book by this creepy doctor that is their guide for their lives. And is it really any wonder that we are where we are today in this world? I'm actually surprised, if I'm not going to be completely honest here, and I'm always honest here, that there are not more problematic marriages in the Duggar family. If they haven't come to light, I believe that they will. It's also very surprising to me that there hasn't been more legal issues that have come out outside of Josh, because if this is their framework, it begs the question of how ripe this environment is for women to be mistreated. And then that should very well show you how Anna is today. Stuck, believing she has to be the bottom, believing she has to keep her house beautiful, herself beautiful, and her life beautiful for her children and for her husband. And her needs don't matter. And she has to respect him. She has to respect him. You don't have to respect anyone. You don't have to. You just don't. He has proven that he is not worth respect, time, money, energy, any of it. He is worth nothing. Anna, this book was a bad move. So after I've rambled on for like a million years about this, going back to the wedding episode, I'm like, they started off on such a bad foot that I'm not surprised that they ended up here today. I'm just sad that the continued indoctrination and books that they read and everything that they believe reinforces that Anna doesn't have a choice to leave, because they think that children are not going to be happy when parents separate. But the fact of the matter is children are not going to be happy if they're living in a home filled with abuse. I would take a child living in a healthy environment with a single parent over the dynamics of what Josh and Anna's kids are facing today. What are your thoughts? Tell me in the comments below. Bye, guys.